Welcome to Thursday. It is March 14th, 2024. This is all about the upslope, especially for the Front Range and mountains and foothills of Colorado into central and southern Wyoming, as northeasterly, moist, deep upslope winds are hitting the east sides of the mountain ranges and the east sides of the high plains adjacent to those mountains, really squeezing out the precipitation. As you can see here, those thickening clouds there in Leadville yesterday. Those northeast upslope winds will be persistent all the way through early tomorrow before the focus shifts down into the desert southwest as we head to the weekend. High pressure builds in for what should be, for most of the central and northern Rockies and plains, high pressure this weekend into early next week. That low, though, will stay in the desert states all weekend. But for a good part of next week, at least Monday through Wednesday, we don't see much going on. But by late next week, another storm system comes into the far western areas of the United States. So late next weekend, we'll be dealing with some type of another large storm. Rain through the Wind River Canyon of Wyoming yesterday as rain showers and some thunderstorms developed across the area ahead of the low. And now you can see in the satellite imagery, if you look really close here, you see the lights of Las Vegas. That's what those yellow areas are. We've got the low pressure in the upper levels beginning to form and come together. So we're seeing rapid development here overnight and this morning of this cloud shield, heavy precipitation developing under it. Now, what you really can't see here are the upslope conditions close to the ground. Lots of rain shower activity and some thunderstorms out in the Midwest ahead of the storm system. When we take a look at radar, you can see the rain across the Midwest, and then you can see in the upslope areas, the Riverton, Wyoming radar picking up the upslope on the east side of the Wind Rivers there. Then the Front Range of southern Wyoming through Colorado, the blue areas there show the snow, rain snow mixed out on into the plains. And this will be a persistent pattern, a radar signature we're going to see all day. Now, yesterday we talked about how on the east side of the mountains, you're going to get the snow, the heavy precipitation. And on the west side of the mountain ranges, you're going to get the snow holes because the snow really weakens and dissipates in intensity as the downsloping effect downhill off the mountains makes the air drier. That really extinguishes a lot of the heavier snow, while the opposite effect takes effect on the east side of the mountains where the air rises, cools, and condenses. Here's a classic signature on the radar from that. So here's Cheyenne. Here's the Laramie Range and the radar echoes of the heavy snow on Interstate 80 west of Cheyenne to the summit. Then look at this hole of much lighter precipitation or no precipitation in the Laramie Valley because of the downslope. But as the air goes westward towards the snowy range, it goes back uphill again. So here's just a classic situation where the upslope produces the heavy precipitation on the east side of the ranges, downsloping on the west side of the ranges here. And the radar really showing that very well. And this is going to play out through the course of the day today. Here are the winter storm watches and advisories and warnings across the west for the storm. And this is where we're looking at the advisories and warnings for Wyoming today. Mostly today, you're going to see improvement north to south by tonight into Friday morning, but it will be especially in those central and southern areas of the state. And we already have closures along Interstate 80 this morning, and those aren't going to get any better. And we've got quite a bit of central areas of Wyoming, at least early in the day, that'll be in the snow. And there you can see Colorado looks just like what we showed you yesterday. You get to the Front Range and into the mountains, it's all about the winter storm conditions. So there's the low as of early this morning, just around that Las Vegas area. Then that blue arrow representing the northeast upslope flow, the counterclockwise rotation around that low, drawing that moisture westward. And it's just persistent. It goes all the way into tomorrow morning, although you'll notice the low does retrograde a little bit more to the south and west. That will end up weakening the upslope component. But by the weekend, that's by Saturday morning, that low is still about, just south of the Grand Canyon. So it's still going to be down in the southwest United States, but here's the high building over it. And as that high builds over, it should take control and give us decent weather, as we mentioned earlier, from the weekend through the middle of next week. Now let's take a look at the precipitation with this storm. This is what it looks like through Monday in terms of where the heavier precipitation is going to be. This is where the snowfall, the heavier snowfall will be between now and Monday. And you can see the axis of the really heavy snow along and west of I-25 from southern Wyoming all the way to New Mexico, then along Interstate 80 into the Wind River Mountains and the Casper Mountain area, and still continuing up into the Bighorns, and then really consolidating down here over the weekend. So a little bit closer to home, focusing in on it, the upslope areas there, the higher terrain on the northeast side of the Uintas, where the terrain rises in southern Sweetwater and eastern areas of Uinta County, the Wind River Mountains here, the Snowy Range, the Laramie Range, the Casper Mountains, the Laramie Peak area. Then you can see the Front Range of Colorado really getting it. And there's where the snow is forecasted to be in heaviest. Now I'm using a 10-to-1 ratio with snowfall. It may be higher than that. So some of those numbers are going to be a little bit lower. We do expect, you see this blue coming out a little bit onto the plains. This will happen later today and overnight. There will be a little bit of snow getting further east out on into I-25. So you can see Wheatland there, Cheyenne, a little bit further out into the eastern plains of Colorado. There's going to be some snow, but nothing nearly of the intensity of the foothills and mountains. There you can see it, just a beautiful representation of the concentration of the moisture there across the Front Range of Colorado. And there's what your snowfall looks like. Again, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. You can see the bullseye here from near Estes Park, then areas to the west of the Boulder and Denver areas really getting socked. Then the weekend, there's your high pressure. Look at that low. Still down into Arizona, weakening, but still there. Did you go to Arizona for spring break? Hope not. And then as we go into next week, late next week, this is by next Saturday. We have the same configuration of a high in the Pacific, low wanting to come into the west, high pressure more in the east. So this is something that will queue up, and that's the next storm to track for you. Have yourself a good Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.